Yo, you never
Right.
see black light. Black
See
like
this black light, black girls, front porch, braiding hair, stay still stay, inhale, breathing in, gelled up, weaved up, ashy knees, greased up, freeze pops, the block high, head shots, don't freeze.
And I got my cross on today. Oh.
No, we're keeping all that. Welcome to another episode of the Black Boy Lost podcast. I'm Black Boy, I'm lost. We're just going to discuss things when it comes to spirituality, toxicity, racism, everything that really impacts how you become a man instead of just being a lost black boy at my age. Today with me, we have my friend, Chelsea. Chelsea, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Chelsea. I've known Taj since high school. I'm a dance movement therapist, and I love Jesus.
Is
that a
it?
good intro? I think so.
All right, we'll take that. That's good enough. First off, how you doing?
I'm good. Today I feel good.
Okay. Other days you don't?
Yes, other
I like
days
the honesty.
are really bad sometimes.
I appreciate the
And
honesty.
I mean, we can talk about that because I think it has something to do with the story of today, but we'll get into that later.
Excellent. We'll get into that now. Well, first question that I like to ask when it comes to these the spirituality subseries is, number one, did you grow up in church?
Yes, I did grow up in church. I grew up in a Baptist church. I grew up in one of those churches where we was gonna be there till 2:00 on Sunday. And
I was getting out early.
well, sometimes we would sneak
or,
out before the benediction.
were y'all Baptist or Baptist-costal? That's
Baptist.
what we named. Okay, that's what we named ours, Baptist-costal.
Yeah. So, well, one of the things I like to share a little bit that's kind of funny is my parents used to always say that when I was little, I cried a lot. I still cry a lot, but they also said that when I was in church, I used to be wailing. And my mom used to like take me out, and my dad used to make a joke and say that, the devil don't like church. So that's the earliest thing I know about me in church. And then I just remember always going to church and not really wanting to go because it was boring. And it was boring to me because I didn't understand anything. It's not like my church had like a kid church that we can go to where they would break it down in more layman's terms or anything like that. It's just you were there, you were listening to the pastor use all the big words, and I would try to stay awake, but I would sleep a lot of times in church, especially when it came to when the preaching started. I would be up for the songs, but then when the preaching started, I'm like, I don't know what he's saying.
Let's get cozy.
I'm tired. I'm going to sleep. But I was like, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I would also play games, and I would tell my mom, like, I don't understand what's happening. And she told me, like, it's okay. When you get older, you'll start to understand. And I remember her saying that, and I just used to try every week, like, okay, maybe now I'm old enough to understand what's going on. Maybe now I'm old enough. And then around, I want to say 8 or 9 years old, I saw someone getting baptized in my church. And I remember it being like such a beautiful thing where people were so excited and happy that people were doing this thing. And I was like, Mom, when do I get baptized? Like, I was genuinely interested in this thing. And she was like, oh, Chelsea, I can't tell you when you want to get baptized. You have to decide that on your own. And I think that was like a huge thing to hear as a like 9, 10-year-old. Cause like, wait a minute, I get a choice in doing something. And it already looked appealing. So I want to say maybe a year after that, I was like, Mom, I think I'm ready to get baptized. And I made that decision myself. So that was good too. But also as we all got older, the pastor eventually passed away, and it just wasn't connecting the same way anymore. And we were kind of just going to the church because it was my grandmother's church, and we just been there for a long time. But there was another church super close to my house that was getting out in like an hour and a half. So that was the first appeal. Like, wait a minute, y'all y'all have multiple services, so you have to end on time because the next service gonna start, and it's only gonna be like an hour and a half of my time. How? Let's hear this. What
How?
is this? And I could walk. We ain't gotta worry about parking, nothing like that. So we started going to that church. Um, it's in Brooklyn. I think I can shout it out. It's
Okay.
Emmanuel Baptist Church. It's pretty big in Brooklyn. And they had Bible study. They had children's church. But by then I was a little older, and I was at that point where I was starting to understand some of the sermons. Um, and I just really liked that church. But I never joined the church because I feel like I really felt comfortable enough right before it was time for me to go to college.
Okay.
And I didn't join because I was like, I'm hardly going to be here. And then I just never joined. But every single time I go home, that's the church that I go to. When I'm streaming church now, that's the church that I stream. But I have a little level of discomfort joining because I live in Atlanta and the church is in Brooklyn.
So why do you have this? Why does that make you uncomfortable joining?
I think because I want to be able to find a church that I can go to. I mean, before COVID, that was my thing. Like, I really wanted to find my own church here in Atlanta that I can go to. And I didn't want to be in a long distance relationship with Jesus, I guess.
It's very, very interesting, which it's going to take me to the next question very smoothly, but carry on. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. What's the next question?
The next question is about your relationship with God. Do you feel as though you have a faith-based relationship with God or a relationship-based relationship with God?
That's kind of tough. I think I might have a little bit of both, which I think now I can tell you about my bad days.
Okay, let's get into it.
So, prior to COVID, I would say my life was pretty good. Like, I didn't have any struggle stories really. And I used to always talk about that because, they will always say God gives the toughest battles to his strongest soldiers. Because I would be like, so what you trying to say, Jesus? I'm not strong. Like, I literally would have that internal struggle, but at the same time, not really wanting to bring in pain to my life. But recently, COVID has made life very hard. And I had gone through, I don't even know if I want to say gone through, because I think I'm still going through it, some anxiety and depression. I don't think I've told you this, Taj. And I think that kind of
You don't tell me anything, Chelsea.
I don't like to tell everybody stuff while I'm in it. Like, I could tell you about it when it's done. After I know I'm gonna be okay. But like, I went through a lot of anxiety and faced the fact that I was going through depression, and that kind of brought me back to God. Because after a while, I was like, okay, I'm tired of going on church online. It's the same thing every week. I don't want to watch it no more. Because I want to say at the beginning of COVID, I was really into it. Like, oh, I'm feeling back with Jesus. Like, I'm feeling my peace. Like, I feel like I can talk to him. So that's the relationship piece where it's like, I literally used to talk to Jesus in the middle of the street, looking up in the sky. And I felt like it was a little bit of missionary work because people that didn't believe in Jesus, they heard me praying out loud. And at the same time, they were there to see the prayer come out into fruition. And then I just kind of lost my way in COVID, just a lot of stuff going on, just being alone by myself a lot. Like, I don't have any roommates or anything like that. So my person-to-person contact is just
Limited.
Extremely low and limited. And I realize now, like, that has a huge impact on me. And a lot of other stuff that had happened. But now, one night, I felt this weird urge to say, something told me, you should wake up super early before the sun gets up. And I was like, I am not a morning person. I don't know what that is that's telling me that, but I'm gonna try it. So I set an alarm for 5:30 a.m. And I didn't put pressure on myself. I was like, you don't have to get out the bed or anything like that, but just wake up at 5:30 in the morning and see what happens. So I want to say for like a month now, I've been waking up at 5:30 and just praying or just having a conversation with God. And sometimes it feels like I can hear a conversation happening, like a back and forth. But initially, it just felt like a sense of peace. Like, okay, I feel relaxed. And then when I would wake up for the day, I would feel less anxious and just like somebody is on my side. I don't know any other way to describe it. But
No, I understand.
ever since I've been doing that, I've been feeling a lot better. And then it's been making it easier for me to hear what God me wants me to do, wants from me. So that's where I kind of feel like the relationship piece is. It's like I definitely just have conversations with him. I do that 5:30 in the morning thing every day if I hear their alarm, because I will say some nights I don't hear the alarm. But I also do go to church online. But I will say the most consistent piece is the relationship piece.
Okay. Why do you still go to church? I know that seems like a
Um,
weird question, but
no, I understand people's thought process behind that, but I go to church because sometimes you'll like have something going on, right? And you don't know how to figure this thing out, and you're not really hearing God. Sometimes you'll log in that one day because it's COVID, and it'll be something that is specifically geared to what you asked for. Sometimes it won't be. Sometimes it'll be somebody else's sermon. But I found at Emmanuel, the way they deliver the message, especially Sharika, who's my Spelman sister, I be trying to tell people to watch her sermons because she breaks it down and she like talks in like the hood vernacular and everything, so it's easy to relate. So I go to church because sometimes I need a little bit more.
okay. Okay, very interesting. So church for you is not necessarily just about the structure or the Bible or anything like that. It's more for you to help build on your personal connection with him.
Hmm I
Okay.
would say that. I mean, it helps with the Bible because if I'm honest, I'm not one of those people that just picks up the Bible app and goes and read. I'm not. So there's that part too.
See, I used to be something like that, where I would look into the Bible, try to study, try to understand, and I was deeply, deeply into church. But as I got older, I had a lot of questions about it. Like not older, like now, how old I am now, or even within
Hmm
like as I got older every year from when I started going to church, I always had questions of, well, why this? Okay, if this is this, then why this?
hmm
And I think that you said something very pertinent to me. That's kind of I talked about it on the last recording I did, uh, where I'm going to have an episode dedicated to Bible 2.0. Basically,
hmm
it's always interesting to me that we still teach from this 2,000-year-old Bible, but when we pray, we all feel as though we hear God speak. So
hmm
if he's still speaking today, and we saw from the Old Testament to the New Testament that he changed, like his mannerisms. He used to kill you for sinning, and then you got grace in the New Testament. Do we think that nothing has changed in that 2,000-year span that from when the Bible was written? It Those are some of the issues, some of the smaller issues I have with religion.
hmm
Not to mention the first of all, the fact that it was used to enslave us is really what gets me what got me away from religion.
hmm
But I do feel as though you should have a relationship with God, and mine when I was growing up was based in religion. Like
hmm
it wasn't based on having a relationship. I got a relationship because of the religion. But even when I think back to go back to what you were saying about depression and anxiety, I've had that forever, right? Like I've been dealing with that, and it fucking sucks. It really does. So
hmm
when we stop recording, if you want to keep talking, I would love to about it. But yeah, it's the worst. But I can remember the time in my life when I was doing the best. It was when I was doing exactly what you said you were doing, And I was still in church and into religion at that time, but I was also doing something that was more spiritual than I knew at the time. I was waking up early, I was praying, I was meditating, then I would work out, and then if it was time for me to go back to, if there were enough time for me to go back to sleep and wake up again, I would do that. Otherwise, I would just go and start my day. But the reason that I wanted to bring you on is because you still are a part of the church, and I really appreciate your reasoning for it, because I think a lot of people still go to it because it's all they know. And a lot of people it's so much a part of the Black experience and the Black upbringing that you can't separate it for a lot of people. Do you feel like it was a part of the Black experience for you? Like, was it something that if you were a different race, let's say, would you still have been into Baptist church?
I don't know if I would be in Baptist church because my family all the time we joke about how we don't ever really see white people in church. Like, and another thing I didn't mention about my upbringing, I also went to a Catholic school from kindergarten to 8th grade.
Okay, Catholic school. Okay, I went to Catholic.
I'm not Catholic.
Me either. I went to Catholic Saturday school because it's part of the process to become Catholic, and you have before your first communion and everything. I did the same thing, but I absolutely.
Yeah, and my parents. So okay, let me get a little backstory, and then we'll talk about the culture part. So my dad is a Haitian man who grew up in Catholicism. Right.
We're the same person. Like, can we, let's just put that on camera.
And then my mom, I don't know if my mom grew up in church, because the story I was told is that my sister actually is the one who told my grandma that she wanted to go to church. And then that's how the whole family ended up going to church.
Okay.
So I don't know if I know we have churches in South Carolina where my mom's from, but yeah, I think the reason why it's Baptist is because of the whole culture. Now, my parents, they never wanted me to be Catholic, but the reason why they told me, or they put me and my brother in a Catholic school, is because they just wanted us to have our beginnings and understanding of who God is. Because we literally had a class, religion. It was easy too. Super easy. That's the easy A class. But that's what my parents told me, because I'm like, why did you put us in Catholic school? And my mom also did not like public school system, and she did not like middle school as a concept, because that was like her worst years in life. So in terms of the culture piece, it's hard for me to say, because I'm not sure that my mom and dad go to Emmanuel because they're Black, or if it's just they just identify with that. I think it's kind of like interwoven. It's like you're gonna find a place that aligns with yourself and your identity. And if you're Black, which we are, that's a huge part of your identity. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying. I think that but the only problem I have with it is that it's a part of your identity that for a lot of people it becomes your identity. We spoke on the podcast yesterday, Knowledgeable Ignorance podcast yesterday, about it's really difficult to put it into words. Even yesterday we had a hard time talking about it. It's like this thing is just part of your upbringing when it comes to religion and politics. How Ted believes that religion and politics should be separated, and I think that all of us agree with that. But when there's certain things that are political decisions made based off of religion, like gay marriage is something that's not allowed or not accepted, but I don't see any reason why a politician would not allow it unless their upbringing taught them that. Right. So for for religion, I feel like for Black people, as you grow up, it's so much a part of your life that it kind of defines you at a certain point. When I fell out of love with the church, there was a long stretch where I was like, what am I doing? I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing.
I think I disagree a little bit. And it's because I feel like it's really important to kind of lose your place. I think God wants us to lose our place a little bit.
What do you mean?
Because, all right, the perfect example I can think of is my dad. My dad, when I tell you the story about how I used to go to church, when I was young to that Baptist church that was ours, my dad would not come with us most of the time. And I remember my brother always asking, like, why dad don't gotta go to church? Like, why we gotta go? And I felt the same way. Like, what's that about? And then I want to say later in life, like, and my dad's gone through a lot of things. I'm not gonna put business out there, but my dad's gone through a lot of things, and he wasn't going to church every week with us. But later, he found his own way back to God, and he was doing a very small church where he was just learning about the Bible, figuring that out, and then he joined Emmanuel. So I think it's almost every person that I know that like has like, you can tell the difference between someone who has like this genuine relationship with God and someone that is just like following the rules, right? And when you meet those people that have this genuine relationship with God, they always have a story where they just lost. They got lost at one point. Like you're saying, Black Boy lost. I think it's important because if you don't fall and get saved, you're never gonna know. Like I didn't know how much God cared about me and loved me until I went through this terrible thing in life. You know what I mean? Like,
But do you think that those two are one and the same? Finding God and going back to church? Because I personally don't think
no,
so at
you
all.
don't necessarily have to go back to church, but I feel like a lot of times when you're lost and you know you're looking for God, church is definitely a place where you should feel like you should be able to find him. I don't think God is in every church either.
I agree with that. I think that for me personally, obviously as I'm going through it, it's not something I can't speak to the future. I could look back on this podcast in 20 years and be like, that was crazy for me to even think that. But for right now, I don't ever see myself being someone who returns to the church
Mm-hmm.
because I think to build a genuine relationship with God, there's so much that goes on in the church that I unfortunately had to be privy to that it turns you away. I
Mm-hmm.
always say that Christians are some of the poorest representations of Christ that there is. And I think that you can find God on your own because a relationship is something you have to build one-on-one. It's not
Mm-hmm.
something that is built through, maybe church can give you the foundation. Maybe it gives a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people the foundation. It gave me a foundation. Like maybe I wouldn't have known who God was had I not been to church. But me losing that, me losing church, I feel like it's built my relationship a lot stronger with God. And I don't see myself going back because the stuff that they teach, I keep hammering this point home on every episode because it's something that's so important to me. And it really just tells me how messed up the church can be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the way that they treat homosexuals, and that'll lead to my next
Some,
question.
yeah.
Yeah, the way that I would say most churches, especially growing up, maybe they've changed now, but
Mm-hmm.
I can't speak to that. I haven't been. But the way that they treated homosexuals growing up is really uncomfortable to me because even I was taught that way, and I was like, well, maybe we shouldn't. Maybe homosexuality is a sin. Maybe it
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't be something that we accept. But then when I did my research, I found out that the word that's used for homosexual in the Bible is the word that's translated to homosexual in the Bible. Wasn't translated to that until 1946. And before then, everything that has to do with homosexuality was just about pedophilia. And that was changed for reasons that I imagine we probably don't want to get into on this or we'll get get canceled. But everybody knows what it is. But
Mm-hmm.
there's certain Bibles, like certain not religions, certain countries whose Bibles are still that base level, like German and Dutch, where the Bible still says, do not, where it says, man shall not lay with man, for that is an
Mm-hmm.
abomination to God. It says, man shall not lay with young man the way that he lays with woman, because that is an abomination to God. The word that they use for homosexual translates in German. It's a two-part word. You know, some words in German are like that. It translates to um, boy molester. So we just translated it in English to mean homosexual for whatever reason. And
I didn't know that.
it's an interesting thing though, no? But in
Mm-hmm. I
church
mean,
still,
it's interesting, and at the same time, I feel like in my heart, I feel like that. Like I agree with that. You
Yes,
know what
and
I
that
mean?
which leads me to my next question. Do
Wait,
you?
before you go to your
Oh,
next
sorry.
question,
Go ahead.
I wanted to bring something because I know you were saying something about you have to have your own relationship and that's a one-on-one thing. Um, I think yes, everybody needs to have their own individual relationship with God, but I also feel like it's important, which you are doing in a very different way.
Yeah,
It's important to have because in the Bible there's something that says something like when two or
where
three
two or three are gathered in
gather.
His name, there He will
I'm
be in the midst.
Yes. So I feel like sometimes you just can't do it by yourself because you got to think about it this way. The devil is always against you. And sometimes we're against ourselves. So if you got two against one, I mean, God is almighty, he's going to win, but it's going to be a tougher battle, especially if you already in yourself don't believe in yourself and you already telling yourself these bad things because we're human, we're going to do that.
But
So
I
I
don't
think it's
believe.
still important to have other people with you and figuring that out. And you're doing it right now with this
Yeah,
podcast. It doesn't
but
necessarily have to be in church.
exactly. I don't think that that has to do anything. Like the individual relationship is important. These conversations when I speak to people, because on one of the episodes that's coming, I spoke with my friend Gianna, and she talks about her spirituality and her stepping away from church, and how because she was gay, she always felt uncomfortable in church, and she couldn't really be her true self. And I doubt that that's what God would want. It's if He's a God of love, then He wouldn't want people to judge you based off of whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, this conversation I had was a healthy conversation about God that did not require religion at all. If anything, religion would have been the harmful part of that conversation. And I don't want it to seem as though I'm just here to shit on religion and say, oh, it's the worst thing that ever. It's not. It gives a lot of people the basis, but it needs to be updated. There's a lot of things in there that need to change. There's so many things in there that are harmful. Like that same Bible that teaches us that where two or three are gathered, there He will be. First of all, that's fine. But I'm sure that if I'm gathered alone, He'll still be there. Like
Mm-hmm.
the two or three thing to me just seems like a way to get people to. It's a book of indoctrination. There's so much. There's a preacher. I'm sorry, I'm all over the place, but I get real passionate about this. There's a preacher who recently, maybe like this year, no, not this year, 2020 or 2019, he preached about how women shouldn't be preachers.
Mm-hmm.
And he used the Bible as his evidence. He
Mm-hmm.
said there's not a single woman preacher in the Bible. And all that comes down to translation and how you interpret it in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
But that same Bible says, lean not to your own understanding. There's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
contradictory things in there
Yeah, for sure.
and the fact that it was written by man gives me
Mm-hmm.
all I need to know. This book was written by a guy or a few people thousands of years ago, and we're still following it today. We need to focus on what God is saying now, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to what that book is telling us, because it's harmful. When you tell people in church, that's another thing that I wanted to bring you on for. We'll skip that other question. For me personally, growing up, me, my mother, anybody who I know in my family that grew up in church, you couldn't, therapy wasn't a thing. Even now, as much as I want to go on the outside, there's still a piece of me inside that's like, no, you can't do that. Come on, it's almost like it's weakness. And I don't know, it's tough to just jump into it because of how much it's been a part of my life to not go. All I've been told my whole life was just take it to Jesus. Just give it to Jesus. Give it to Jesus. You have bills you have to pay, just give it to Jesus. Okay, but then it says faith without works is dead.
Mm-hmm.
What are we doing? There's also a quote that says, the harder I work, the luckier I seem to get,
Mm-hmm.
which to me means the more work you're willing to put in, the better. Like life will go a lot easier for you.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. So to bounce back to your question, to the question I want to ask you was something like therapy an option, I guess? Was it something that was like frowned upon in church?
I don't know about that, but I'm a therapist. And I believe in therapy. And I think the idea of Black people not wanting to go to church, I mean not wanting to go to therapy, is because we as people have a very big reason to, but not feel comfortable bringing our burdens to another person. Now, we have a lot of Black therapists now, but you got to think about when people were saying that, majority of therapists did not look like them. And therapists, they do have a lot of power where they could institutionalize you. So I think the distrust comes from that that piece of it. But I think we can do away with that now. Like, you can find somebody that looks like you, that understands your thought process. You can even find a therapist that believes in God if you think that's important. My therapist does. Um, but it's work, like you said. You're not gonna look it up, call one person and be like, "Can you be my therapist?" and it fall into place like that. It does not work like that.
Yeah.
Just like you can go to a doctor and you hate that doctor, so you find another one. And what I do is I kind of interview my therapist to see if it's gonna work. Like, the things that I think about, the things that are important, and I'm like, okay, do you have a specialty in anxiety? Do you have a specialty in depression? I want to also bring in Christianity. Is that something that you can do? Like, those kind of questions. Like, I'm Black, you're not. How do you feel about that? Like, it's important to bring those up because you're paying for it. Don't nobody want to figure out 6 months later that the therapist is not working for them. You know what I mean?
I agree
Um,
with you. And I think that with religion, when you intertwine those two things, religion has always been something that's so stubborn. Like, it seems to always be the last on the train, where homosexuality is starting to be more accepted by the church,
mhm,
at least from the outside looking in. It's starting to be more
mhm,
accepted by the church, but it's already something that's more accepted in society. Not saying that it's not still a little bit taboo and it's not still hate crimes that go out
mhm.
towards it, but it's already been accepted everywhere else, and the church is like, okay, maybe to keep up to date. It's almost like saving face as opposed to doing what God wanted you to do.
I
Um,
think it depends on what part of the homosexuality you're looking at, because homosexuals have been running the church and have been running the arts ministries forever.
they have,
So they're in there,
but are they
and we're
accepted?
accepting their talented. We're
Yeah,
accepting their talent. But what I will say that is not accepted yet, I know a lot of churches, they're not willing to marry gay couples.
yep. So that, to me,
Um,
that means you're not accepting. That just means that you understand that gifts come without repentance, and these people are gifted, they're talented, they can do
mhm.
the worship ministry, but you can do all of that, but just don't be gay on Sunday.
No,
Is
I don't think they're saying don't be gay. It's just saying, I think they're
no,
saying,
on Sunday.
I don't know. I don't agree. No, you can be gay if you want to be gay, but I am not going to subscribe to what you do. I'm not going to help. Uh, I'm not going to back that up. I disagree. That's what they're saying. I look at it that way. Like, if
That's an
you come,
interesting.
you can come as you are, but when you're involving me and my beliefs, I'm not going to change my beliefs because you want to get married.
I don't
Now,
think
I
that.
don't think that way, but
Yeah,
I think that's the churches, at least what I've seen. That's kind of how I interpret it.
I don't. For me, I've never seen it that, like, when I go to the church experience, I don't feel like it's that pleasant. Like that, the way you described it was almost very passe, just passive. And hey,
Emmanuel
listen,
Baptist Church.
I don't see it that way.
It's a
I've
it,
never seen it that way.
you should go to Emmanuel,
I won't.
because this is definitely it's definitely different. Like, we know people are gay in the church. They know that they're gay in the church, and I have never seen people, acting shady towards people that were homosexual or anything like that. But they are very strong and adamant about marrying. We're not going to do a marriage here.
But see,
At
even that
least
goes back.
but that was the pastor's decision. He said, "I will not do that."
But see, even that goes back to what I said earlier. Why won't he marry gay people? Why won't he allow them to? Why won't he
Because
marry them in his church?
he does not agree with gay marriage.
Well,
He
why?
believes that
Because
that
of the
is
Bible, he
not.
believes that.
Hmm.
But that Bible was misinterpreted. So if we tell him now that,
But you also have to think about it. He is the leader of the church.
Yeah, yeah.
You and if you don't want a leader that believes that, you need to find another church.
But if we tell him that this is wrong, not just when it comes to morally, but this is wrong, like scripturally. This is not what it says. Do you think that he'll change his views?
I don't think we have the authority to do that because he's the one that went to school for theology.
Why not? If it's
Because
been
I didn't go to
translated
school. I did not go to school for theology, and I did not study that. I don't have the evidence to back that up. Now, maybe somebody else does, and
But
they can tell them that.
if we have the evidence to back it up, which we do, why?
You.
Okay, which I do. I can send you all the links and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, if we have the evidence to back it up, even though we didn't go to school for theology, why can't we correct someone when they're wrong? Nobody is above reproach.
If you feel like, I think you can if you feel like you have that information and you have that evidence. But at the same time, it's really hard to change people's beliefs. You know what I mean?
And that's
like
my problem.
Some things are universal. I mean, yeah, I can see that being problematic, but at the same time, it's like you have a choice in where you want to worship.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a problem with that, then you can, I'm sure there are a lot of churches that will marry you as a homosexual. You can worship there. But I think I don't want to get into the LGBTQIA plus too deep, but sometimes I think just human nature, we want people to see us the way we see us, and it's not possible. It isn't. You have a 360 view of your life. You know you're a great person. We don't see that. We're not with you as much as you're with you.
I think that's sad. I think the fact that I have to choose the church, that's fair. That part is fair. The fact that I have to choose the church, but the reason that I have to choose the church is because this one doesn't accept me the way that the Bible tells them to accept me. Why would I choose that church? Why would I want to choose a church at all if there's so much that's different about them?
So if you went in a restaurant and they were like, "Oh, we don't like niggers," would you want to spend your money there anyway?
Absolutely not.
Would you want to go to a restaurant that is more warm and loving towards your black self?
I would absolutely.
So why is that different?
Because that restaurant that's saying we don't like niggers is wrong. And if all restaurants had that belief, right? If all restaurants had that belief, but then some of them changed over time and said that no, this is okay, I'd understand that I need to go to these other restaurants. But I would also say, y'all had that belief, I need to start cooking at home more. Same reason a lot of people.
That's a lazy approach.
How? Well, why do you think that?
Why aren't people eating at home now with COVID? Because they want to go out to eat sometime.
But those restaurants aren't saying, I hate you niggas.
No, of course not.
Sorry about that, but let's keep going.
But yeah, I think the problem is a lot of people want churches to be perfect because we have this Bible that's telling us all the ways that we should be Christ-like. And we forget that these pastors and these church members are still human. And they should be aspiring to be better, but you're not going to get 100% perfect people. They're not going to agree with everything you say.
Okay, so
and you should find something or find a place that's more aligned with your beliefs.
So I just want to say that before we started the second recording, Chelsea said I have a rebuttal to your restaurant thing, and she absolutely did not rebuttal the restaurant thing. She just went straight into church. So now I'm off guard, but I'm cool. Don't worry about it.
Okay, let me put it back to the restaurant thing.
No, you're good. You're good.
I'm not going to spend my money at a restaurant that hates me, right? I know I can find another restaurant that loves me.
But no, I think that the restaurant example is too broad when it comes to religion. Because if we're just talking about Christianity, then we're not talking about restaurants because there's many different religions, there's many different restaurants. If we're talking about McDonald's, for example, if we went to one McDonald's and they were like, we don't serve niggas, would you drive to the next McDonald's? Or would you just say, you know what, this is problematic for me? If one of their stances was, we don't serve niggas, you'd be like, this is problematic for me.
Okay, I see what you're saying with that.
Yeah, and I think that when you choose different religions, that's different. Now, to go back to what you were saying about perfection, I agree with you. I agree that that's on us. Like, that's a mistake that we make, that it's people are not perfect, because at the end of the day, even though we're taught to be Christ-like, we're not. We're not Christ. We cannot be perfect. But the illusion of holiness is what makes me irritated. When people put on this facade that they are better than what they actually are, when they pretend like what you do is wrong and that they could never. I've seen that so many times in the church, where the old church mother will bash the young woman who comes in with a skirt that's a little bit too short, but then in her, she's still in her wicked ways. It's like, you can't don't judge me. Like, leave that to God. You should just be here to direct me and tell me what I need to do. If anything, if you have a problem with the short dress I came in with, approach me. Let me know that, hey, listen, you have to do a little bit better than this. Cool, I'll take that. But don't whisper behind my back. That's something that happens so much. And I don't just want to get stuck on that point, but the perfection thing is a good point. We do have to stop expecting perfection, but they have to stop presenting it.
I mean, I think a lot of people, I think the perfection part comes from the members, because I think we have a terrible habit of putting leadership on a pedestal that they don't need to be.
I agree.
And I remember Sharika, she's one of the pastors at Emmanuel. I remember this because I couldn't believe she said it. She said, if some of the old hoes would talk about how they used to be hoes, we wouldn't have so many new hoes. She said this in church.
I like Sharika
and I was
already.
Like,
clutch the pearls.
Yes. That's why I like that church, because they're going to tell you like it is. And that's just the truth. That is the truth.
So what I'm doing with this podcast, with this sub-series about spirituality, is something that I think should be done in the church. And that's kind of what I feel like she was doing there, where it's almost like tearing down the walls of religion, or I guess you could use the walls of religion, because a lot of it is a facade that stops you from getting close to God. When you said that we put preachers on a pedestal, I agree with that. And I think that that's a problem. I feel like my biggest...
You almost give them a celebrity.
Yeah, and with the Catholic Church, when I was coming up in it, I stopped because I was like, this is nonsense. I'm not going to pray to the Virgin Mary. She was a person. I'm not going to revel the Pope. He's a person. These are people. I'm going to continue to pray to God, serve God, and worship God. I don't care about saints. That doesn't make any sense to me. So the fact that we did that there, but then you come to a Baptist church and you almost do a very similar thing with the preacher, you hold them to this high level and high pedestal. I don't want to get too much into this because I know the reason why we do it. Or I feel like I know the reason why we do it. But when you do that, you start to almost wipe away God, because your relationship with the church is based on, with God is based on the church. So if the pastor does something wrong, it makes you question everything. And you're like, well, what am I doing this for? No. He's still a person. Like, he can mess up. That's fine.
And I think a lot of that streams from, we only see the pastor when he's preaching.
Exactly. And because not to say like my pastor is like some heinous, evil person behind the scenes, but when I see him and you have like real authentic conversations with him, it's like, oh yeah, no, you're a dude. Like, you're a guy.
I'm a dude.
She's a dude. We're all dudes. Hey, okay, but yes, exactly that. Yeah.
I think that's the part that's missing. We're not getting as much one-on-one conversations or relationships with the pastor, so that we can look at them like, oh, you're just a teacher. The same way you look at your teachers growing up in school. It's like, I know you're probably having a bad day, but what you think about when you're in third grade,
even then,
to be like, does my teacher have a first name?
Perfect.
Does my teacher have a husband?
We started realizing that in like high school and college. As you get older, you start to realize, oh wait, no, they have problems like me. And I think,
and people that are spiritually immature will do the same thing.
Yes, exactly. People will look at their teacher, like when you see a teacher outside of school, you're like, wait, you don't You don't live in
You
the
don't
school
live in
building.
school?
Yeah. And I think a lot of people are like that. And the problem is that everything to me is a cycle. We push them to this pedestal, so they feel like they have to stay on that pedestal. So they can't let you see them be human. So now we're always seeing you do that. So if you drop down even this much, everything comes into question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Last thing I wanted to talk about, because this is looking like it's going to be a longer episode. Last thing I wanted to talk about was astrology, but just to get a little touch on it. Growing up in church, that wasn't something that anybody believed in. Like, that's nonsense. It's God or it's nothing. That was the other point I wanted to say earlier too, that two things can be true. Like, that's the problem with religion and science. They're always butting heads
Yeah.
when they can just work together.
I always say, I think my God is smart enough for it to make sense.
I think, and exactly, I think that God is the how and science is the why.
Yeah,
That's how it's always worked to me.
Okay, he can do the Big Bang Theory. You don't think he created the Big Bang?
Yeah, exactly. Like, it could just be that simple. Like, it doesn't have to be one or the other.
Yeah, it's like, and I think a lot of people think of zodiac signs and astrology as
that ain't nothing
just
but the
weird characteristics, and it's like, you literally were born when the planets were aligned in a certain way, and do you not think that affects you in any way?
You see how
we are affected by living in growing up in Brooklyn.
Exactly. You know me, so you know how opposed
I know you don't
to
like
that.
it.
No. I
You're
didn't.
Changing?
I'm like trying to learn more about it, because the stance on this, which will be something I discussed in the very first episode, is I don't think, and this is something you'll probably you're gonna disagree with this. I would rather believe that God is not as invested in us as we'd like to believe, than believe that he's not a good God. I won't go too much into it, because
I think I know exactly what you're saying, and I don't think I disagree. Because
okay.
I had this thought when I was doing my 5 a.m. thing.
Well, tell me what you're saying.
Because, okay, I know a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, when they get really upset with God, if God loves me, why would he have this person die? Or why would this terrible thing happen to me? Yada, yada, yada. And it's like, God loves you, but there is a way bigger picture.
I think we're on similar speeds.
It's not that he doesn't care about you, and that this thing that happened to you, this huge thing that happened to you, doesn't pain him to see. But it's like, yeah, but I have to make sure that the bigger picture is okay. And that might have had to happen.
We're on similar pages with that then. Basically, yeah, my standpoint is there are babies dying of cancer. There's natural disasters, everything that all this bad happens, that wouldn't be from a good God. What I think is, it almost sounds like Supernatural when I talk about it, but it's not.
We
it's
love
not
that
exactly
show.
like that. We do. It's the best.
You should watch it.
My thought process is that astrology plays a huge role, because God created the universe and he made it in this perfect order that things will always continue to flow. Do I feel like he does intervene sometimes? Absolutely. Do I feel like he's micromanaging our lives? No. I don't think that when you say just give it to Jesus. That's
what free will is.
Yeah, when you say just give your problems to God. God does not care about your light bill. Yeah, exactly. I don't care about your light bill. Go get a job, man. Like, stop. Anyway,
I do wonder sometimes if Jesus get irritated by the little prayers.
That's what I used to say it all the time. I was like, he's got to be pushing my prayers to the spam folder. Like, enough. Delete. This is crazy.
You're gonna be all right. That little boyfriend.
You got a headache? Oh my God. Why are you praying to me? You know, a baby just got beat up by a kangaroo.
Didn't I create the God that made the Tylenol? Get out of my face.
And that's why I think that it needs to intertwine with each other. But got a little bit off point. And I'm starting to realize that astrology probably does play a large role in God's perfect plan. So I just want you to, if you can, first of all, was astrology something that was shunned in church, or when you came up?
I can't really speak to that, because ever since I was younger, my mom's into astrology. So she was like, oh, Chelsea, you might like this type of thing. Like, so I was like, oh yeah, I do like this. And I've never heard it be a terrible thing in church.
Can you talk like
But
that
it's
for the rest
also
of the
not
pod?
something that I talked about it in church. Like, hey, what's your sign? Hey,
Yeah.
pastor, what's your sign? But yeah, I've never heard that it's a bad thing. I've heard people like didn't believe in it, but it was never presented to me as if it was something that took the place of God either. It was like, you were born this time and you're a Scorpio, which can explain why you're so emotional and da 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 da. So I think it just kind of
There's a
helps
video
you
on this TV.
understand yourself a little bit.
Oh, this
And it's
this. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Keep going. I'm sorry.
I say, and a lot of people that disagree with astrology don't dive deep into it enough,
Hmm.
because it's more than just your, you know.
Real quick, I want to show you this. Oh no, I'll just send it to you on Instagram because it annoyed me. Are you back on Instagram? Yeah.
Yes,
You be taking random hiatuses, so
I have
yeah,
to for my mental health, man.
I understand. But yeah, that's that. Tell me more about astrology before we keep going. Like, tell me how you think
Um,
it works or how it
so
does.
there's like an entire chart. Now, I won't say that I'm like a guru of zodiacs, whatever. I learned this from my boss, actually. She was like, yeah, I only knew about the regular zodiac sign. I was born November 17th. I'm a Scorpio. But there's way more to it. It's like a rising, there's a moon, there's this is how you react to love. This is how you communicate. And the more I read about that stuff, the more I was like, okay, yeah, this stuff got some stuff to it. Like, yeah. I'm a Scorpio, but I kind of act like a Leo sometimes with my emotions.
You know
And
what's
I'm very organized, like a Virgo. So I think we all have all these
you know
things
what's
that
really
pull
funny
on us.
about that? You know that I'm always like, it gives you super generic shit. Like,
Mm-hmm.
today you might have a headache or not. Who knows? But it's you, Gemini. So as I'm starting to like try to learn more and understand it better, one of my friends messaged me, or no, not messaged me. I'm lying. We were on the phone, and she was like, "Let me read you yours for the day." And this is the day before I started the podcast. She said, "Yours for
Mm-hmm.
today says something along the lines of you're about to embark on a journey that you've been waiting to begin for a long time. It's going to take a lot of hard work, but it's finally going to get your message across." Something so direct like that. I was just like,
Mm-hmm.
"Huh,
Mm-hmm.
okay, that's interesting." But yeah, I have to agree that first of all, there's a lot of levels to it. Second, it's important and it's probably factual. Like,
Mm-hmm.
the world was aligned in a perfect order when you were born.
Yeah. And we also have to take into account that some of the people that are creating this are human beings, and they're not going to get it right all the time.
Mhm.
That same grace of perfection, like, stop. A
Do you
person wrote
think
this.
that how do you like learn to read that yourself?
Um, so, all right. I use this app CoStar, but now I'm kind of like averted to it because I don't know if you guys have heard this, but the founder or creator of CoStar has basically admitted that they can kind of tell that you're going through stressors. You know, these apps, they be all in your stuff. So they can tell when you're going through really hard times, and they literally create your horoscopes or updates to kind of push you even more. Like, sometimes mine will be very mean, and I'm like, what the heck is this? Let me see what mine says. So I don't really like tell people to do
That's
that.
funny. This is a dark joke, but if you're thinking, "Damn, I think I just want to kill myself," and you open up CoStar and it just says, "Do it."
No, seriously, it's bad. Let me see what mine says today.
Do
Hold
it,
on.
pussy. You won't.
So today it says, being true to yourself is scary and hard. Still, you must try. That's not bad. And then it goes, today you're feeling stressed. Instead of being a cluttered drawer, try taking responsibility. Forcing your opinions on other people only reveals the cruel truths hidden in your jokes. Like, that has nothing to do with the sun and the moon, right? So I take it with a grain of salt. CoStar's really good when it shows you your chart, though. Exactly. So don't do CoStar. There's another website online. I don't remember what it's called though.
I'm on CoStar
Um,
right now.
but CoStar is rough. I would not recommend. It's good to tell you your chart because like it'll look like this.
How do you? Oh, hold on.
So The main ones you really need to know are your rising, which is ascendant, which is my Virgo. Your sun sign, which everybody usually knows, is Scorpio, and then your moon, which mine is Leo. I don't know if it's backwards on you guys, but
No, it came through clear.
those are the like, if you want to try to see where this goes, those are the 3 ones you should look up: the sun, the moon, and your ascendant or rising.
So there's going to be an episode for anybody that's actually like really interested in this stuff, because obviously I'm still learning. There's going to be an episode that I want to do with a couple of people where we can have a larger discussion about it and dive deeper into it. That won't be this episode. Obviously, we've already kept you for quite a long time. So I think that we should start wrapping up. Chelsea, is there anything that you want to shout out or any news?
I don't have anything I want to shout out, but I just want people to be okay with the dark sides, the dark times that come, and that it's best to explore during those times. Like, those are the times where you're going to be like, okay, it might not bring you to church if that's not what you want to do, but I think the dark times are the times where you really have to stop and listen to yourself. So stay lost for a little bit.
That's the opposite of what this. You know what? Thank you for listening.
For a little bit, not forever.
I know. Thank you for listening to another episode. God bless. Take care. Bye-bye.